All right, Chapter 4, Computer Controlled Braking System BNS Contract Logan of Maintenance Manual. Chapter 4, Schedule Inspection General Information. Chapter provide the recommendation to regular schedule of maintenance performing the computer controlled braking system inspection. Computer controlled braking system must be inspected at the intervals prescribed in the section. Preventive maintenance schedule established in the BNS. The inspection performed at 92-day intervals. Warning: before attempting the service, inspect the troubleshoot, the remove, the repair any of the components of the braking system for the safety precautions outlined. Chapter 3 must be adhered to. The 92-day inspection identification location components is shown in Figure 1 and 4.2. Air pressure test references in Chapter 5, Section 5.2.1. And then it shows your pneumatic control unit. And then your computer control relay pneumatic unit, computer relay unit. 4.4. Equipment replacement, replace, repair, and overhaul. Equipment replacement of the component of the Bnsf brake system required with the removal of the replacement procedure given in Chapter 6. Equipment replacement should be filed with the suggested guidelines. Component overhaul of the Bnsf brake system is listed below. Schedule below. Annual clean air filter replace damaged 5 years. Brake control overhaul. Pneumatic control overhaul. Dead and toe valve overhaul. Unscheduled if the failure occurred with the computer controlled brake diagnostic indicate the valve rebuild cycle. Do digit display of the DI board, a digital indicator board when they create the PF when reading rebuilding cycle pressure. The failure of the top button of the digital board, digital indicating board must be depressed and show the default 3-digit code of the digital indication board panel should be checked every 92 days. All right, Chapter 5 on locomotive equipment checkout and analysis. We're just going to continue rating since that was only a minute and 30 seconds. Chapter 5 on locomotive equipment checkout analysis. General information. Chapter provide the recommendation regarding with equipment checkout with analysis of the perform with the computer control board, GE, BNSF brake system. Whenever there is a suspected brake problem, degrade with the brakes performed with the necessary for the locomotive to have an equipment checkout with the analysis performed and located to correct for the problem. The following instructions should be also used with the normal equipment inspection performed. Functional test purpose of the Chapter 5.2 for the functional check of the brake equipment. Unlockable and single car test procedure for the computer reference computer controlled electrical brake test procedure SMRC 1012 revision A. Tool test air gauge 0 to 160 psi, 1/4 inch MI inside diameter hose, female Parker Halfman H2 60 fittings, 60 CF CF certified orifice test timepiece minute with second indication, laptop computer serial cord, National New York Air Braking Computer Control Program disc. All right, this shows your brake charge gauge, main reserve gauge, brake pipe gauge, equalizing reservoir gauge, the Parker Halfman H260. Preliminary setup locomotives to run with a supply with a DC power adequate, the pressure computer control braking system will ensure the proper choke for the air conditioner off to eliminate the exhaust airflow with the air conditioner through the brake components. Check all position with the cutout cocks valve as valve. The air main reserve drain cock closed. The dead engine cutout cock closed. All cocks both ends. The brake pipe main reserve equalizing independent application release pipe. Actuating pipe closed. Brake cylinder cutout cock open. Main reserve cutout cock open. Ensure the both ends are not plugged. Ensure the throttle is in idle. Reverser is removed. Place EC switch to run. Check the control engine switch if the closed. Check that the locomotive computer circuit breaker clove of the IFC system is operating. Place the automatic handle in the HO position. Place the independent brake in release position. Check the air brake circuit on. If not closed, in 30 seconds, complete with the power up. Move the automatic brake handle to suppression with 10 seconds to reset the power brake after the power up. Set the brake system to lead and cut in. Place the automatic handle release position. Allow the system to follow each charge for the 2 minutes. Equalizing reservoir brake pipe pressure gauge display should be approximately 90 psi. Brake charge gauge display should be reduced to 0 psi. Brake charge gauge display must be reduced to 0. The control computer board to take control of the brake cylinder pressure. Note: before continuing the air brake testing, air gauge display must be qualified proper up calibration described in the following procedure. All right, your air gauge display qualification, connecting calibration test gauge hose and female parking half in testing fitting is appropriate with the pneumatic control unit test point with the brake cylinder brake pipe main reserve equalizing reservoir procedure if the may be performed one pressure at a time, one gauge over the floor with the gauge for the not available. All right, when automatic release position, check with the IDU gauge display with each of the pressure displaying reading not more than 12 plus or minus 12 psi with the test indication. Move the automatic brake handle full slope of the check for the IDU and again for the test gauge pressure of the reading. Pressure readings may not be more than 2 plus or minus 2% of the test gauge. Return automatic brake valve with the release. Check for the equalizing reservoir gauge display with the feed valve with the same with the 80, 90, 91 psi brake pipe gauge displays plus or minus 1 psi with the equalizing reservoir display gauge rather than the IFD should use all the response times. All right, your main reservoir pressure settings ensure the main reservoir pressure cycle is between 130 and 140 psi. Main reserve J1 safety valve, de-energize the compressor governor, allow the compressor to pump and control under control to 150 psi. While observe the main reservoir gauge display, with listen for the J1 safety valve with exhaust 150, 155. The valve does not pop between these pressure. Replace the valve. Return the control compressor governor. Allow the main reserve pressure to stabilize to 130 and 140 psi. Main reservoir leakage check. Shut down the engine. Move the stroke of the air supply with the main reserve globe of the automatic drain valve with two qualified test gauge. Connect with the main reservoir equalizing hose. Open the main reserve with the multiple unit cutout cock to read main reserve pressure of the test gauge vent. Number one main reserve until the pressure is at 84 psi. Observe the test gauge leak is not exceeding 3 psi per minute for 3 minutes. Observe the main reservoir pressure gauge with the display of the cab does not decrease more than 3 psi per minute. Get leakage of the verifies integrity with the number two main reserve. Check the valve with the open automatic blow drain with number two main reserve. Allow the pressure to be reduced to 84 psi. Observe the main reservoir pressure gauge the gauge display in the cab. Observe the main reservoir gauge the leakage if it not exceeding 3 psi per minute for 3 minutes. If any leakage measurement exceeds the specification, find or correct the source of the leak of the repeat. Test the reset of the automatic drain valve of the automatic position. Clean the main reservoir multiple unit cock. Remove the test adapter's main reservoir hose and ensure all of the pressure is relieved of the hose and before removing the test gauge. Leakage brake cylinder. Place the test gauge inside with the with the truck cut out and the brake light cylinder line automatic brake valve handle on the FS position with the note with the B brake charge gauge display on the crease 58 to 64 psi close the truck cut out cock to trap the air in the brake cylinder place the automatic brake handle with the release position remove the supply pressure for the brake cylinder. Observe the gauge of the brake cylinder leakage no more than 5 psi per minute is allowed. Open truck cutout cock with remove the test gauge. Repeat the test at other truck. Alright, brake pipe equalizing reservoir leakage. While brake system is fully charged with the move of the automatic handle will gradually when the service air equalizing reservoir gauge is displayed with a reduced at 70 psi of the top. Note that the brake pipe gauge display reduced to plus or minus 1% of the equalizing gauge. The automatic cutout using the IFD screen. Place the automatic FS position. Note the equalizing reservoir gauge 64 to 67 psi. Remove the brake pressure and the equalizing reservoir gauge display with the 1 above. Note the brake pressure drop must not exceed 1 psi, and brake pressure may not increase. And equalizing reservoir should remain at 64, 67 psi. Place the automatic handle in the release position at equalizing reservoir gauge pressure 89, 91 psi. Observe the brake pipe pressure gauge display with the 1 minute, and the brake pipe pressure must not increase. At the automatic IFD screen to cut in. Automatic brake operation. Allow the brake system to recharge for 1 minute. Note that the equalizing reservoir display 89 to 91 psi of the brake pipe display plus or minus 1 psi of the equalizing reservoir gauge. Brake charge gauge display 0. Pneumatic control. Or the PC indicated not displayed. Place automatic brake handle with the minimum position. Note the brake pressure reduced 6 to 8 psi. Brake charge applied to 10 to 14 psi. Move automatic handle step to the forward position. Move each of the steps. Note that each of the steps result with the equalizing brake pressure of the gauge display with the brake pipe. It is the 1 plus or minus 1 psi of the equalizing reservoir gauge. When each of the steps of the equalizer brake pipe, the corresponding increase of the brake pressure occurs. With automatic brake handle in the forward position, note that the equalizing reservoir display with the indicator 67 psi. The brake pipe pressure gauge is plus or minus 1 of the equalizing reservoir. Brake charge with the display with 58 to 64 psi. Slowly automatic handle with the release position. Note that the equalizer and the brake pipe gauge does not increase until the handle of the release has reached the release position. Brake charge gauge does not reduce until the handle has reached the release position. Allow 1 minute for the system to fully recharge. Place the automatic handle with the forward position. Note that the equalizing reservoir display reduces to 64 to 67 psi to 3.5 to 5 seconds. So the brake charge display with increases 0 to 50 psi in 5 to 7.5 seconds continues at 58 to 54 psi. Alright, your place automatic handle and supplement suppression position. Note the equalizing reservoir display with it remains 64 to 67 psi. Brake pipe gauge display with the 1 pipe plus or minus 1 the SR and brake pipe gauge display that remains 58 to 64 psi. Place automatic handle with the HO position. Note the equalizing reservoir display with the 0 psi of the brake pipe gauge reduces 7 to 13 psi. Brake charge gauge increases 75 to 95 psi, approximately 20 psi. Brake pressure pneumatic control indicated not displayed. Place automatic handle with the release position and allow 1 minute for the fully system recharge. Place the automatic handle with the emergency position. Note the brake pressure rapidly increases 0. Brake charge indicator is displayed, and pneumatic charge indicator is displayed. Equalizer reduces 0. Brake charge gauge displays and displays increase of 0 to 50 psi in 4.5 to 7.5 seconds. Continues to 75 to 79 psi. Train sand is on 60 to plus or minus 5 seconds. Wait 60 seconds with emergency reset. Place automatic handle in the release position. Allow 1 minute for the system to fully recharge. Note the equalizing reservoir gauge 89 to 91 psi. Brake pipe pressure gauge display plus or minus 1 of the equalizing reservoir. Brake charge gauge display 0. Pneumatic control indicator not displayed. Operator and auxiliary emergency brake note for the brake pipe pressure rapidly increases 0 to the maximum pneumatic control is IS displayed. Brake charge increases to 72 to 79 psi. Train line stand is on for 60 plus or minus 5 seconds. Close auxiliary and emergency brake valve. Move the automatic brake valve and emergency release into the release position. Alright, when the generator field switches off, prevent the unit from loading in advance of the throttle. Reposition open the brake A angle clock, single the brake into 2 with the note the second relay with the pneumatic control activity code of the angle clock with a relief through the handle of the idle. Place the automatic handle in the emergency release position, then to the release position. Allow 2 minutes the system fully recharged. Note the equalizing reservoir displayed 89 to 91 psi. Brake pressure gauge 11 psi. With the equalizing reservoir, brake charge display 0. Pneumatic control is not displayed. Independent brake operation with the independent handle with the step with the full position, pausing each of the step of the brake charge gauge display with increase the step of the move. The independent is the full position over the brake charge gauge display 71 to 73 psi. Move the independent handle with the release position, pausing each step to the note with the brake charge gauge display with decrease the step of the move the independent slowly release position. Note the brake charge gauge display 0 psi. Play for the independent handle with the full position. Note with the brake charge gauge display with increase of 60 psi 2.5 seconds continues and 70 increase 71 and 73 psi with play for the independent handle with the release position over the BC brake charge gauge displays and the reduced to 10 psi with 2.5 seconds continues 0 psi. Check with the quick release automatic brake valve in the following manner. Move automatic handle minimum service position, press the button with the independent handle with the brake charge gauge display with the rapidly reduce the 0 psi release button. Move automatic handle to the forward position with the brake charge gauge or full suppression position, full suppression position, brake charge display increase with the move the independent the full position press the push button independent handle the 4 seconds of release and note with the brake charge pressure does not increase with the full application. Move the independent handle release of the brake note the brake charge display reduce the 0 psi. Move the automatic handle the release position. Safety functions. Alert penalty brake place the independent automatic handle and release approximately 2 minutes. Alert the device and the sound expire. Noting the equalizing reservoir gauge start with a decrease of 5 seconds, 5 to 7 seconds. It reduces 0. Pneumatic control indicator is immediately displayed. Brake pipe pressure gauge displays reduces approximately 10 psi. Brake charge gauge increase with approximately 60 psi, and then approximately 80 psi of the brake pressure reduced to less than 20 psi. Move the automatic handle suppression in the position of the pneumatic control indicator with the note lift of the approximately 10 seconds move of the automatic handle release the equalizing reservoir brake pressure recharge brake charge reduces 0. Move independent handle full position approximately 2 minutes with the note of the alternative devices alertness devices does not sound. The IFC with communications loss. Place the EC switch in start position. Move the independent automatic handle release open locomotive computer system breaker to shut down the IFC system and a note. Exhaust brake pipe pressure occur with the 15-second loss of the IFC. Brake cylinder apply. Wait 1 minute. Close with the locomotive computer system breaker. Note the equalizing weather gauge 0. Brake pipe gauge display 7 to 13 psi. Brake charge gauge display 72 to 79 psi. Move independent handle full position handle automatic suppression position with a 10-second with the pneumatic control indicator not displayed. Move the automatic handle release no. Equalizer reservoir gauge display with increase of 90 psi. Brake pressure gauge displays increase with 1 plus or minus psi with the equalizing reservoir. Brake charge reduced to 71 to 73 psi. Or your power loss penalty. Place independent brake valve and brake handle in the release. You open the air brake computer circuit breaker. Then over the exhausting brake pipe beginning an independent service rate brake cylinder. Apply with the pressure push button independent handle with the holding note the brake cylinder release the button independent handle noting the brake cylinder reapplies. Move the automatic handle the suppression position close the air brake circuit with the circuit brake over the equalizing reservoir display 0. The brake pipe pressure 7 to 13 psi. Brake changer charge gauge is 70 to 79 72 to 79. Brake charge pneumatic control indicator not displayed after 40 seconds. Move it independent handle to the full position. Move the automatic handle the release position and note the equalizing reservoir gauge increases approximately 90 psi. Brake pressure display with increase of the plus or minus 1 of the equalizing reservoir pneumatic control reduces the 44 to 47 psi. Move independent handle with the release position. Brake charge gauge with the reduce to 0. Then move the full and note the brake charge gauge display with increase 71 to 73 psi. Alright, your dead end tow feature to disconnect the magnet valve 16 transducer, magnet valve plug. Move the independent release position. Allow the brake charge to reduce 0 0 psi. Automatic brake applicability. Move the automatic handle with the minimum reduction position. Note the brake charge. Apply with the move of the automatic handle the full suppression, and note the brake charge. Display creep with the 48 to 51 psi. Move the automatic handle with the HO's position and equalize weather or brake pressure approximately 50 psi. Move the suppression and note brake charge display with 54 to 57 psi. With the move of the automatic handle release position allow 1 minute for the set-in system to recharge. Independent brake operation. All right, move the independent handle of the step forward with the full position of the passing. Each of the step with the note with the brake charge. The gauge for the display with the increased step with the move the independent brake handle to the full position of the brake charge display 44 to 46 psi. The note the independent handle with the step forward with the release position, pausing each step with the note with the brake charge gauge displays increase and step with the move the independent handle with the release position. Note the brake charge gauge displays 0. Quick release automatic brake. Move the automatic brake handle with the gauge to release over the position of the equalizing reservoir that have reduced 70 psi brake charge display with approximately 28 psi. Press the button on the automatic handle, note with the brake charge gauge display with the reduced to 0. Release the push button. Wait 1 minute with the note with the brake charge display remains at 0 psi. Automatic handle for full suppression position. Note with the brake charge gauge displays increase with approximately 15 psi. With the move of the automatic handle release position allow with the system to charge 1 minute. Emergency move of the automatic handle with the emergency position for the note with the brake charge gauge display increase with 75 to 79 psi. Connect the magnet valve 16 transducer magnet valve plug after 60 seconds. Of the handle with the release position allow the system to charge for 1 minute. Place the independent handle for the full position. Your airflow indicator. Perform airflow test. Apply with 60 cubic feet per minute. Orifice of the brake pressure hose to verify the main reserve test gauge is plugged into the main reserve test point with the pneumatic control unit. Main reserve readings are test gauge of not IFD. Slowly open the brake pipe angle cap with the airflow through the orifice. The IFD screen, go to the air brake setup, adjust the feed valve setting with the main in 90 psi with the brake pressure with the main reserve pressure at 130 psi on the test gauge. Fuel valve will be approximately 93 psi. Observe the brake pressure does not increase with more than 2 psi with the equalizing reservoir pressure. Observe the airflow with the IFD screen with the main reserve tax gauge for the 130 psi with the brake pressure with the 90 psi indicating with the 57 and 63 cubic feet a minute. Airflow within the specification calibration airflow indicator must be the performance specific to Appendix A calibration procedures. The airflow within the specification slowly cover the brake pressure angle cap. Remove the orifice of the brake pressure hose. Replace all covered and closed with the door of the brake compartment. Adjust the feed valve setting to normal to 90 psi. Completion of the test. Upon completion of the test, check with the following before leaving the locomotive. The independent brake fully applied in the unit until secure from lowering reverse center of the handle. Remove the automatic brake handle in the release position. All test gauge and fixtures adapters removed. All vaults are cleared. All access panel and doors are closed. Both remain reserve drains are automatically positioned in automatic position operating. Appendix A of the computer controlled air braking flow and calibration procedure. Calibration procedure of the perform locomotive step with the normal airflow test part with the XA17 with the test gauge with the main reserve test point with the pneumatic control unit. Remove the access of the panel with the electrical control unit. Connect the laptop computer with the serial cable of the digital item board. Insert the PTU disk in the computer with the access of the drive containing the type of the computer controlled PTU. Press for the enter computer control portable test unit should appear with the type L for the log and press the enter key. Program will be after the password with the enter it again. Test the screen and calibrate the flow of the use the airflows and enter the flow calibration shown with the no. Monitor the IFD screen with the 190 psi with the brake pipe pressure. The main reserve with the pressure produce exactly 130 psi according to test gauge for the type F of the computer keyboard. The working will appear lower right hand of the computer screen. Then after a few seconds, the number will appear. The type of the S for saving the calibration. Observe the L following a device of the IFC with the 90 psi brake pipe pressure and main reserve test page gauge with 130 psi. Airflow of 57 to 63 cubic feet per minute. Exit test. Type Y for the type C for the valve, the X for exit for the air with the arrow key. Enter for the type of the Y for yes. Reset the computer control board. Disconnect the computer. Airflow is not 57 63 cubic feet a minute. Repeat calibration procedure. Upon completion calibration procedure, return to part X8 continuation test procedures. Alright, code of the testing of computer control brake air equipment subsystem procedure of the GE Bnsf. Preliminary. No, the procedure that you may use the isolate with the analyze of the specific subsystems and or component of the computer control braking circuit. This may also be familiarized with the personnel with the computer control braking system operates. Analog test gauge reading should be within 2 psi of the laptop computer screen and indication testing. Equipment required laptop computer with an RS-232 cable, pneumatic control unit testing gauge rack with the test point adapters, wheel chocks, piping, wire diagram, 1502 setup, connecting test points with the pneumatic control testing unit, test gauge rack, ensure the locomotive compressors operate with the main reserve charge, ensure the AB circuit breaker is closed position, isolate the locomotive, removing the train multiple unit cable, closing the multiple unit train end cocks, play for the automatic independent hand with the release position, set the handbrake, use the laptop, insert computer control bag, what is it? The PTU. Program this laptop, connect the laptop computer communication port with a digital item board. Turn on the laptop, select enter password error, or select the main menu test. Do not let it turn on laptop off. The program will have to be restarted. After selecting test, remain in the menu of the selection subsystem component with the be checked with the pressing of the appropriate key with the corresponding items you want to test. Screen will display the following items you can check. The EPA1 is the brake pipe control. EPA2 is the brake cylinder control. BEA1, number 20, number 13 control circuit. SS5, the relay interfaces of the driver circuit. SS1 controls for frequencies. Alright, for example, the EPA1 is screen with a display available with the corresponding key. Select the circuit with the laptop. The screen will then state with a certain value with whether on or off, etc. Perform task with the chronological list of the EPA1 brake and pipe control. Select A with the magnet valve, the equalizing reservoir on position. Select B with the C with the main magnet valve 53 and magnet valve EM. Turn off the position, ensure the 5 volts of the show of the under valve of the equalizing reservoir brake pressure with approximately 74 psi starting any test series of tests. Select etc. Return the menu. The main selection EPA1 brake pipe test. A for the magnet MEVER, B for MV magnet valve 53, C for magnet valve EM, D for pressure, and E for voltage. Commerce test for the main reserve charge, equalizer reservoir analog converter. Select A, B, or C with the laptop computer. Note that on off the will be displayed A, B, C laptop screen and give the magnet valve set. Select A and C to select with the magnet valve ER and MV. MVEM to off condition. Select B with the MV53 on condition. Select E voltage, select 5, and enter the note that the 5 volts displayed on the screen. Set the voltage set like 0. Enter the note that the blow at the exhaust of the AWER. Alternate 5 and enter 0. Enter to assure the AWER is applying release pressure. Finally, select E for the voltage, select 5 to enter. Note that the approximate 5 volts display on the screen supply magnet of the AW4ER analog converter is energized. Right, your ER magnet valve with the common step of the A and C with the magnet MEVER, MEV off B, MV15 on 5 volts display screen. Select A with the MEVER no on display with the under A and B on the screen. Equalizer reservoir pressure T and TP or ER gauge to 74 plus or minus a half a point PSI. Select A again off the display with the A and C with the screen on display with the under B. There is an gloss rear of the pneumatic control location of the magnet valve equalizer reservoir. Equalizer reservoir reduces the TP equalizer reservoir gauge at 0 psi. Select the magnet valve equalizer reservoir again on display with the under A and B screen. Equalizer reservoir pressure with the TPR gauge with the 74 plus or minus 5 half a psi. Select E for voltage. Select 0 for the internode with the O to depict for the under the voltage screen and then below the exhaust the AWER ER reduce the TPR ER gauge to 0 psi. Select E for the voltage, select 5 enter the 5 volts shown on the screen. Equalize reservoir pressure for the TBE gauge 74 psi plus or minus a half point psi. Alright, your brake cutoff pressure of the magnet valve 53. Common to the depth of the number C off and then A and B with the on with the 5 volts display with the green. Select B with the note with the off the display with the under the B and C with the on the screen on displayed under A and brake pressure chain with the TP and TP and brake pressure gauge within 1 psi with the equalizer reservoir. Select E for the voltage, select 4, enter the node with the voltage laptop screen, decrease the equalizer and brake pressure, decrease the respectively to the TP gauge. Repeat the decreasing voltage of the node with the every corresponding decrease the equalizing equalizer and brake pressure. Also decrease the select E with the select 5 and enter and charge the equalizing reservoir 64 plus or minus a half psi brake pressure plus or minus 1 psi of the equalizing reservoir. Your emergency magnet valve commons for the test with the brake B and C off and the A and it's on with the 5 volts display screen. Select B on the node with the on displayed under with the A and B on the screen. Select C and the node with the on displayed under C. This is below the rear of the pneumatic control behind with the emergency pneumatic valve. Brake pressure reduces rapidly with a 15 psi. The TP the gauge of 1 minute. Select the magnet valve emergency magnet valve with a note. The office is displayed on C screen, so select B with the office indicator of the B and C screen. Brake pressure is increases to plus or minus 1 psi with the equalizing reservoir. Note the completion of the test of the 5 volts show under the voltage of the on display under A off the display with the under B and C. Equalizer brake pressure is approximately 74 psi before starting the exterior of the test. Select exit to return to menu and select EPA selection. Your EPA brake cylinder 2 control conditions test 1. B, C, and R off is and A is on, and approximately 5 volts to screw the equalizing whether brake pipe pressure chart with approximately 74 psi. E corresponds to the MV magnet valve 16T transducer. B corresponds to the VA voltage relay. C spot relay. D pressure relay. B is VA relay. E is voltage analog converter. Select A MV 16A, the node of the A on A of the screen, select E with the select of the 5 of the enter of the node of the 5 volt shown on the screen, brake cylinder pressure of the will charge, select E of the 0 enter node of the there was blown exhaust of the AW16. Brake cylinder pressure will reduce the J relay with the select E of the 5 of the enter, shift of the 5 volts display on the screen, brake cylinder charge, so the number 16 default magnet valve with the compliant with the on display under the A pressure TP 16 gauge 74 pressure minus half a point brake charge the TBC approximately 74 psi. Selecting again off display with the under A of the screen. There exhaust the dead and toe valve with the number of 10 point brake charge pressure. Degree of the TP brake charge gauge to 0. Select A again on the screen to display with the A screen 16 the pressure the I don't know the transducer pressure with the 16 gauge 74 psi and I have a point brake charge transducer pressure of the brake charge gauge is approximately 74 psi. Select an E 0 volt enter the 0 display with the voltage on screen. The below exhaust of the AWE16, which is the brake pressure descriptive of the transducer pressure brake charge of the gauge 0 pressure of the select E with the 5 volts enter for the volt 5 volts shown on the screen. Pressure the transducer pressure of the 16 number 16 gauge change to the 74 psi plus or minus a tenth a fifth of the plus or minus a fifth ps a half a psi brake charge TP brake charge with approximately 74 psi. Select E with the 4 volts enter the node of the volt laptop screen the degrees volt 4 volts the brake charge of the TP base C gauge decrease with the 3 to 1 volt is not corresponding decrease with the voltage pressure. Select E with the select 0 volts enter reduce the brake pressure to 0 psi. Alternate select the B enter for the node on and off display under the B screen. Relay K12 VA de-energize finally believe that leave B in the off condition, alternate C with the enter the note on and off the display C screen, relay K6 energize de-energize, leave the C in the off condition. After completion of the test showing the under the voltage on display on the A of the display with the B and C with the equalizer whether brake pressure approximately 74 psi brake charge and 0 psi with the TP BC gauge. Select any return of the main selection. Alright, BAE, number 20 and number 13, control circuit addition, testing BC with the alpha, the MV16 5 and 5 volt display with the equalizing whether brake pressure must be charged 74 psi, brake charge might miss be at 0. A is your core relay, magnet valve 20M, 20R, 20A, 13E, and 13S. Alright, your number 20 control panel, control portion alternating C with the MV2 with the 23, the magnet valve 20R with the note the energizer off of the energizer display with the screen with the leave the C, MV20R with the off condition, deselect the D with the MV20A, the energizer and the note the on display with the MV20A with the pressure TP, transducer pressure for the 20 gauge charges rapidly with the 55 to plus or minus 1 psi. Select the magnet valve 2080 energizer and note off display with the magnet valve 20A. Selection of the magnet valve 20R de-energized note the on display with the under 20 volt ESI pressure of the transducer pressure for the 20 gauge reduces rapidly 0 psi. Low pressure fully exhaust the 0 psi. Select C, then select B, and then note on display with the multiple valve magnet valve 20M. Selecting multiple valve 20A is energized note the on display with the magnet valve 20M. 20 volt A. The pressure of the transducer pressure of the gauge 20 gauge comments for the charge at a slower rate. Allow the pressure to travel at least to 30 psi plus or minus 1 before continuing. Select D with the multiple voltage magnet volt valve 20A. The engine select the magnet volt valve 20R. Re-energize the note. The on display with the magnet valve 20M and then 20R. Produce pressure. Reduce the slope of the transducer pipe pressure 20 gauge. Select MV the end of the on display with the magnet valve 20R. Select the C with the magnet valve 20 R de-energized note off the display with the magnet valve 20R. Alternately select A on and off displayed under A with the relay K5 with the core with the re-energized de-energized. Alright, number 13 control E is on. I have to dissolve. Note that the PS13 off of the PS3 is open. P7 PS13 is open and select the E magnet valve 13 E to de-energize. Note off the display of the magnet valve 13E. Select F, the magnet valve 13S. Note the on display with the magnet valve 13S. Pressure build in the TP 13 gauge PS 13 chamber the on the PS 13 closes. Select the magnet valve 13S of the de-energized. Note the off the display with the magnet valve 13S. The pressure reduced for the TP. The test pressure 13 gauge. Stay alive with the 13 psi pressure. Your pressure PS change to the off. The PSA 13 opens. Select for the magnet valve 13E with the note with the on display with the magnet valve 13E. The TP 13 gauge reduce the previously stabilized pressure through the O0 psi. Just select E with the magnet valve and 13E to de-energize note with the off display of the magnet valves. Or your PSB and pneumatic breakout control. Note that on display of the PSB pneumatic switch brake control. I'm not sure what that remembers like, but open off the display with the brake pressure cutout. Open. Note that the completion of the test brake pipe must be charged, except the return to main selection. Your SSIOU driver circuit select E with the SS5 test A. Note on the screen the relay K1 LEZ energized. Select A. Note off display K1 ES of the energized. Select B and note on display with the relay K2 IBS is energized. Select B the note off display with the KB2 IBS is energized, and etc. Escape return main menu selection. The SS1 controller frequency. Select D for the SS1 test automatic digital input brake inputs to make the automatic handle the release of emergency position over the off display of the AE1. Automatic handle the HO position over the on display with the at the AE1. Automatic handle the release position over the on display with the AR and AE1. Independent brake digital input to move the independent handle the release service and out with the maximum note with the IM and IR over the R off. Place independent handle release position over the IR is on. Place independent handle the maximum position of the IM is on. Automatic handle with the bail off, the off of the release position over the bail off is on. Replace the independent handle bail off the note with the bail off the off release position of the bail off is on. The CPU CTC controller. Enter the twice the main menu of arrow to move the monitor center and F. Independent play for the independent release position over the 11,225 hertz maximum, 10,925 hertz minimum. Place independent hand maximum position with the 3,443 hertz maximum, 2,943 hertz minimum. Automatic brake handle release position over the 11,025 hertz of the maximum, 10,925 hertz minimum. Place automatic handle minimized position 10,300 hertz maximum and 9,920 hertz minimum. Alright, automatic handle on the full suppression position over the 5,976 hertz with the maximum and 5,966 hertz minimum. Automatic handle suppression position over the 5,112 hertz maximum, 4,732 hertz minimum. Less automatic handle in the HO position over the 2008 and 2,806 hertz maximum, 2,426 hertz maximum minimum. Place automatic handle emergency position over the 1,365 hertz maximum, no, and 985 hertz minimum. Press escape to return to main menu. Alright, 5.3, troubleshooting general information. This section provides information diagnosis concerning correcting certain trouble that may occur with the computer control board, Bnsf brake system. Before starting troubleshooting, proceed with perform the thorough visual inspection of the equipment to determine the system whether it is being covered over the obvious defect for the loss over the damaged component. The otherwise troubleshooting procedure must follow the logical sequence design isolate the trouble in a single component. No, in all cases, the rules set for the Bnsf valve within those cases, such as the rules, the recommendation, operation, property, within instruction, overriding, evaluating condition, braking arrangement, safely remain the post most important consideration that become necessary to move the locomotive with an obvious equipment malfunction. Integral alternate control arrangement may be utilized. Temporary repairs may be arranged to provide brake for braking a locomotive. The locomotive with the temporary repairs must be operated with a restricted speed, must be shopped for corrective action. First terminal point to prevent continued operation of the unsafe condition. Ability to readily identify the swift employ any problem associated with the proper function of the equipment arrangement, indicate the necessity of the repair of the operator should not perform never attempt to remove the detail parts of the equipment arrangement, repair of the default of the detail of the necessary so the repairs must be done with an inch component personnel shop. Warning: whenever any device portion involved with the component port is removed from the air brake equipment arrangement, if for any of the reason is replaced with a new or repaired a test device portion involved with the component part with standing operational test over the whole braking arrangement of the test vehicle is required before permitting the vehicle to move. Before operating the locomotive with suspected malfunction, verify the condition of the equipment arrangement, checking the appropriate location. Or your troubleshooting chart with a valve that does not list all the symptoms of the probable cause, though the most probable variable cause and combination of the defects and the explain with the person who learned and recognize the value of the system appropriately. Actions: troubleshooting guide abbreviation legend 20T to 25 producer APL application AW416 analog converter to 1916 pipe AW4 analog converter equalizer pipe BC brake cylinder BP brake pipe BV brake valve, BC brake cylinder, BCCO brake cylinder cutout, BCT brake cylinder transducer, brake pipe cutout switch, brake pipe transducer, CR computer relay unit, DIT dead in tow, ER equalizer reservoir, EMO, ER emergency, EX exhaust, FLT flow transducer, FS full service, I8R independent application release, MR main reserve, MV magnet valve, minimum, MIN minimum, MRT main reserve transducer, MV13E bail off exhaust magnet valve, MV13 bail off supply magnet valve, MV16 default magnet valve, MV53 brake pipe cutout magnet valve, MVEM emergency magnet valve, MVER equalizing reservoir default magnet valve, PCU pneumatic control unit, PS13 actuating pipe pressure switch, PSBP brake pipe pressure switch, PVE emergency detection pilot air valve, the PVE emergency pilot air valve, REL release, TPER testing point equalizing reservoir, TP testing point main reserve, TPBP testing point brake pipe, TBBC testing point brake cylinder, TP20 testing point 20 pipe, TP16 testing point 16 pipe, testing point 13 pipe, and voltage condition unit, VDC, voltage direct current. Alright, let's cut the tape there.